I move that we call this meeting to order.
And I guess I have to second it.
There you go. All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor? Carol,
Aye.
Neil, I, Courtney,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Cindy.
Aye.
All right. The motion carries. All right. We are called to order. Are there any topics that need to be added to the agenda that could not have been anticipated 48 hours in advance? Okay. Wonderful. All right, so as always, we start out with a little poetry reading. And does anybody have anything they want to share? If you don't, it's okay. I'm always at the ready. All right, so let me read what I did tonight. So this is in honor of the fact that, a week or two ago, I went out, and as I always do at this time of year, and finally saw Orion through the trees, which is always the harbinger of winter. And so this is a poem by Mary Oliver called Orion. I love Orion, his fiery body, his 10 stars, his flaring points of reference, his shining dogs. It is winter, he says. We must eat, he says, our gloomy and passionate teacher. Miles below in the cold woods with the mouse and the owl, with the clearness of water, sheeted and hidden, with the reason for the wind forever a secret, he descends and sits with me, his voice like the snapping of bones. Behind him, everything is so black and unclassical. Behind him, I don't know anything, not even my own mind.
Lovely.
Yeah. Can always count on good old Mary Oliver for some good nature stuff. All right. So let's see. I'm just looking at our agenda. We have a 7:30 notice of intent for 211 Farm Road, but obviously that's 15 minutes from now. I know that there was gonna be a slight update in terms of Gene was gonna share some stuff about the budget, but I'm looking. Oh, there's the budget update. I can tell you just sort of very superficially what that's about, because we're going to talk more about the budget and finalizing what's going to go where at our 16th meeting. But just to update you, the interim finance director, whose last name escapes me, but Deb is the first name, she has done quite a bit of research on, and I think actually, I don't know if Jean brought this up the last time, but basically she's done quite a bit of research, and it's possible that we can fund a minutes clerk next year by taking some of the hours out of Elizabeth's schedule and pay for part of Elizabeth's salary, because she's doing wetland protection, out of this fund that is the state fees fund that's designated for wetland protection. So we'll have more details on that, but it looks like it's possible to make it so that it doesn't cost any more for the town, and it's just kind of moving a couple of piles of money around and hoping that it works out. But apparently this is a thing that people do. It's not an unusual thing, but she's going to kind of help us, guide us through that process, and it'll be reflected in some way in the budget, but I just don't know exactly how it'll shake out in that context. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Fantastic. All right. Let's see. Do we have minutes that we need to go over?
We do. I can share.
Might as well.
Michael, did you grab my my edited?
Of course. How could I not do that? Let's
Thanks.
see.
Well, then I know I can just not say anything.
Okay. Do we see a set of minutes here?
Yep.
Let's get rid of this. Hold on. Oh, okay. Sorry, just trying to get rid of empty space. Here we go. Here's the beginning of it, which is just a sort of protocol, unless we spelled somebody's name wrong or something else like that. Then I'll just scroll down to the motion for the budget's has a number of little parts to it, but hopefully we captured it well enough. Hopefully you'll say something when you're through.
There's nothing of substance. You can take the apostrophe out of minutes clerk.
Yep.
And then in the first line where it says the vice chair has been exploring the filing fees with interim finance director Deb Seifring, you should take out the comma after director. When you have somebody's title followed by their name, there's no comma in between. Just take out the.
Or you can put a comma after, either way. Okay, done?
Yeah, well, you take out
Oh,
the.
sorry, I said that.
Interim finance director Deb Seifring, and then it's her title and her name. Yep.
You do it that way, we got to get rid of that.
That is correct.
That's why I was suggesting the other comma. But.
Yep. Michael, where it's edited to say the commission asked for clarification on marker locations in that whole big section 20, is that plural? It should be marker locations. I can't tell. I guess that S was crossed out. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's crossed out. It's marker locations. Locations is plural. It's the only plural.
Thank you. I'm done with that page.
Actually, I'm going to add this.
Is that the name of the book, The Nature of Oaks? I didn't know he had written a book called The Nature of Oaks.
Yep, it's the most recent one.
I'll buy that one or read it.
For the rail trail, I mean, it's not like a duck waddles, right? It's a waddle with T's. Am I imagining that?
Yeah, I think so.
That's a funny way to think about it. And then in Constitution Village violation, in the second line, do you think that should be retention basin C rather than routine basin C? I don't remember how it was referred to, but
It's retention basin. It's really actually a detention basin. I don't know what was referred to in the meeting.
Is it retaining or detaining? All right.
I mean, when you're
I
talking
think
about,
it's a detention basin.
yeah, when you're talking about that thing, it's a detention basin.
Going back to the rail trail, part. The culvert did not collapse exactly. I would say the culvert was partially blocked by a, well, we're going to hear more about this, but decomposed, I think.
Do you know
straw
what?
wattle.
So there's no, the question is
I think the way it was described was it had become blocked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a second duck wattle in there instead of straw wattle with the T's.
I just thought it was D's, but I think you're right. Oh, well,
well, somebody could do a quick online search. Yeah, it does. It looks weird, Waddle. There's something wrong with it. I don't like it.
oh, boy.
Just looking at the
Somebody-
pictures
It's
this time,
T's.
It's T's.
It is
Like
T's?
wattle and daub. It's not wattle.
Okay.
Anna, I have a question for you about it. Just looking at the pictures for today's hearing, it didn't actually look like the culvert itself had collapsed, right? It was more that it was obstructed, and
That's
that
correct.
part
Yeah,
of the
that's what I
rail,
was saying.
part of the trail has collapsed.
Correct.
So I think that's,
Well, you don't have to get rid of that. I would just say the culvert had, because what we did discuss at the last meeting was the culvert had become blocked and part of the trail washed out.
yes, I think that's more correct in what I was trying to get at.
Right, and that is what we said. So
Okay, what have I got here? The culvert was partially blocked by a straw wattle and part of the trail asphalt was washed out.
sure.
It wasn't asphalt, it was just compacted gravel.
Oh, okay. So that was, okay,
Just say part of the trail was washed out.
right.
Just because it's 7:31, if I can ask Joyce, are we actually going forward with Farm Road, or are we going to continue it again?
No, we're gonna go forward.
Great. All right. Well, I think we should just pause on this and let's keep on our schedule. Okay. So let me dig out 211 Farm Road. So this is a continuation, right? We've just been continuing, so I don't have to open okay, so we are going to reopen the hearing into 211 Farm Road. So, Joyce, I'm assuming, are you presenting this? You're muted,
If I could share my screen.
please.
Are you able to see my screen over here?
Yes.
I've been continuing this while I was assisting the commission, and now that Anna has taken over, I want to continue this to close out this notice of intent. So the last time we discussed this project, there were a few items that you requested I add to the plan. And if you recall, this was a notice of intent that was filed to an existing dock had been replaced along with the access to the dock. And at the same time, it was noted that there had been considerable pruning throughout the buffer zone, and that part of the notice of intent was to come up with a pruning plan going forward with the property. So the things that I've added to the plan since the last time we met we talked about staging the pruning, again, keeping it in a defined area as opposed to the entire width of the frontage of the pond. And the area was defined just to recall, have everyone recall, we put tall bird boxes that would sit up above the sweet pepper bush on the ends of where the pruning would take place, and that it would start up at the edge of the lawn, to a minimum of 5 feet down to a minimum of 6 feet down towards the trail, and that I basically divided the area in half. It would be more gradual, but I just wanted to be sure that it was very clear to the homeowners what the heights were. And then the bird boxes could either be set at that height or a mark put on the poles where the bird boxes are to mark that height so that everybody is very clear when they view this. I also added some notes regarding the Vista Pruning, and that would be the Vista Pruning would be conducted every other year and only during the winter season, so that the growth, the new seasonal growth wouldn't be cut. It would be before the growth starts in the spring. And then one of the comments were that could we leave the cuttings to build up underneath the sweet pepper bush, so they would be cut up and just left underneath. The other note I added was that when you walked out here, you can see that when the dock is, they've always been stepping up to the side of the dock. They wanted to be able to step onto the dock, but instead of doing any ground clearing or cutting or grading, that this, basically the boardwalk would be extended on top of the ground, not changing any of the grades, so that things could still grow up underneath it towards it would be extended towards the trail. We still have the sweet pepper bush that would be planted adjacent to the dock, but by extending this, we're not disturbing any of the other sweet pepper bush that was to the side. And then lastly, if you recall, walking down here, I added the note that said there were some steps that would be reset in the path, just for safety purposes. And then lastly, there's some, at the time that we were out here last year, I think there were 4 buckthorn in this area of the isolated wetland that would be removed by hand and disposed of. And those are the changes that I've made to the plan since we last met.
Okay. Did anybody have any questions? So Joyce, because it's been so long, like, and this is the only document that's in the file folders. I'm just trying to get a sense of where things stand otherwise with the project. Like, do we have all our materials? And I'm asking you, even though you're representing the applicant, but you probably have a better recollection of it than any of the rest of us. So I'm just wondering if you can kind of just give us a state of where things are with it.
So the last time we were out here, we did a site walk on the property. And I did submit and I think we had two meetings. So we did go through all the steps that we had talked about as far as the bylaw and the Vista Pruning and things of that nature, and the dock itself. And these other little items that we're talking about there was some concern about the pruning of the sweet pepper bush and wanting to be able to control it better, not so that it's not mostly allowing it to fill in as opposed to get taller, and to be able to provide a buildup of organic material underneath it. So I think this is the last thing. Adding these things to the plan was really the last thing that we had before your previous agent left.
Okay. Does anybody else, I mean, I don't think I did the site visit, but I remember the site visit. I remember others went. Do other folks have outstanding questions, or does this sort of put to bed any concerns or questions that other commission members had?
This is pretty much what we had discussed during the site walk, and it's exactly what I remember. So I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, I don't either.
I don't have questions, but I do appreciate, I had shared, we got some information from Project Nest Watch at the Cornell Labs, and they said that fall and early or late winter are the best times to prune to promote bird habitat. So I appreciate that note is right there, that it'll be happening in, early or late winter.
Okay. All right. So are we at a point where Well, obviously we need to draft an order, and I'm assuming we don't have anything in draft form yet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So at this point, I think we can move to close the meeting, and then we'd obviously have to draft an order. Um, so, all right. I move that we close the hearing.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion on that? All right. All those in favor, Neil, aye. Michael,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Since we don't have findings to read, I'm just wondering, just logistically, does it make sense for us commissioners to draft an order, read out the findings, and finalize the order at the next meeting?
I have no problem with that.
I mean, I
As long
think
as
that's
the
what we should-
applicant, all right.
That's fine.
Okay. All right, then let's just plan to do that, and obviously Anna will, get you the information you need and so on, to be able to do that, and we'll give you whatever support you need. So, okay, great, that's done with.
Would it be possible to take the few minutes that you have to give you an update on Farm Pond before our next hearing?
Update on Farm Pond.
So this is the yacht club.
Oh, absolutely. It's under our discussions. Please, if you think you can wedge it in 5
I'll be
minutes.
very quick about it. It's really just informational and we're not changing anything.
Okay,
If I could share my screen.
please.
So the commission issued an order of conditions that is still valid through next year. If you recall, the yacht club had inadvertently built their shed on an abutting property along with the dock, and you issued them an order of conditions. I think they originally submitted a request for determination, and you asked them to change that to a notice of intent. You then issued an order of conditions to do the work. They did the work, but did not realize at the time where the property line was. So they moved the dock from over in this area here to where they thought they were on the property, and the lot line, we've staked out the lot line. It's been confirmed by the abutters surveyor, and that we're putting the shed where it was originally proposed, but now they know where it's actually going to be. We'll be staking the actual location on the ground. This is really just to let you know that work will be taking place in the next month or so to complete the work. I'm not sure anybody was aware that it either hadn't been done or had been done not quite far enough. So these are the original locations that you proposed it. We just did a more detailed plan, and we'll be staking out the actual location. So that's all really the only update that I wanted to give you in case anybody noted that work was taking place and what was going on. I just wanted to remind everybody you had a current order and that they would be following through with that. They'll let Anna know, or the office know when that work will start. And that should be sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, great. Michael?
You're saying that the new proposed sites are the ones that were actually in the order of conditions?
Yes. Yep. It was a
Okay.
hand-drawn sketch, but it's the same location.
So they put it, so essentially then I'm concerned about the issue of restoring
So that's part of
the edge where they have the current dock in the wrong place and where they put where the existing shed is.
well, that's one of the agreements they're having with the neighbors, is that they restore the area once they're going to restore the area that's been disturbed to its I won't say its original condition, but being planted and no longer be planted and stabilized.
Okay.
Joyce, so this is just we have a plan for it now, not just a hand-drawn plan.
Correct, exactly.
I
That's
get
all.
it.
Right, and there's also the information that we may not have known that the work hadn't yet taken place.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay,
and that's it. That's all I have.
wonderful. Thank you. All right, well, we've got about 30 seconds. We might as well just get started. So we've got notice of intent for this rail trail work. So just give me 1 second to open up the hearing. I gotta get back to my place. There it is. And where's that thing? There it is. Okay. Notice is hereby given that the Conservation Commission of the Town of Sherborn will hold a virtual public hearing at Sherborn Town Hall, 19 Washington Street, Sherborn, Mass. At 7:45 p.m. on the second day of December 2021, the hearing will be held pursuant to Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws as amended, the Wetland Protection Act, and the Sherborn Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 17, to consider a proposal by Sean Colleen on behalf of the Town of Sherborn Department of Public Works to repair the Sherborn Rail Trail, Map 1 and South End Lot 32. Work is proposed within the buffer zone. This application is available for viewing in the Sherborn Conservation Office. All persons desiring to be heard will be given an opportunity to speak at this hearing. Okay, great. Joyce, you look like you're poised to say something.
Oh, I was gonna say, if I could share my screen again, I will walk you all through it.
Please.
So the first thing I'm gonna show is the pictures that I put in the notice of intent. And as you can see, when we were on our site walk, there was a long straw wattle that had deteriorated, but was holding back the leaves and debris and blocking the culvert. And when we had those very, very strong storms, what happened was this area backed up and then washed across the trail. And you can't really see clearly. There's a little bit of washout on, this is the Whitney Farm side of the trail. The blue sneakers you see here are on the Holliston-Sherborn town line, standing over the culvert. And this is the end of the trail in Holliston. And when it washed over, this is the area here that washed out along the side. And it was a combination of what came over the top, washed out this side, and a little bit of what came down the ditch on the opposite side contributed to it. So the idea would be, I'm going to stop this share and go to so this is the large view of the trail itself. This is where it's walking down, the trail is coming down the side, and then it goes back onto the old rail bed in this area here. And here's the Sherborn town line. And this area that I've got circled is the area that washed out right into here. That's the area that we're talking about. So it's about 30 feet long, the area from the culvert out. I'm being conservative, meaning that I'm over. It might only be 25 feet, but I'm giving this area right here is the area that we're working in. The idea would be that Sean Colleen has already gone out and put erosion control barriers out here. He did that a couple of weeks ago. And now what we'd like to do is to repair the surface, because people walk this quite regularly and it's somewhat of a hazard now, and we don't want it to freeze that way and to have them use it all winter in its its danger condition. The idea would be that the surface would be repaired and that we would put stabilize the slope with trap rock along the side. So that way, should anything ever happen, again, this was a one-time, we would hope it would be a one-time situation where the culvert was clogged. The culvert's a 24-inch culvert, and most everything goes through it quite easily. We've never observed it to be washed out before, and hopefully this was a one-time thing. But armoring the trail on both sides will help stabilize the slope permanently. And we would do that in the area, again, just this first section right here. And then the grade would just be raked out again. There is, when this area washed out, there is a little pile of, well, erosion, what eroded off the top here, collected in this area right here, that would be removed with shovels and buckets by hand, and then taken away. And that's really it. It's just a case of repairing what got washed out.
A quick question: is there any plan to just kind of routinely check the culvert for any kind of blockages? Because I can imagine any sort of debris getting in there, even if it's fallen branches or whatnot, could cause a backup in the future.
It's probably not a bad idea. It's large enough so this was an erosion straw wattle that was actually, Holliston had done some work over on this side, and somehow it just got pulled in and washed out. We removed the other wattle that was over here. We pulled that out and got it out of the way. So the idea would be not to leave wattles, but certainly to checking regularly certainly doesn't hurt.
Right. I mean, it's not like go down there every week. It's really like every 6 months or whatever you would.
I would say that, that could be a routine maintenance, and it's not a bad idea.
What about just putting a very large grate, even if we just do some rebar, like
I think
6
that would
inches
be
apart?
worse.
Right. That would just cause a buildup of material.
So right now, all the leaves can go right through it.
Okay.
I think if you put rebar in front of there or any kind of a grate, you're gonna just,
Mostly like an 8 by 8, I mean, like only 8 inches apart or a foot apart, just a few vertical things.
yeah. I
Okay.
think I think it was just a
Fine.
bad situation, one bad situation.
Okay.
And is the surface going to be just that surface that's eroded away? That's just compressed gravel?
Yeah, compacted.
That's about 6 inches high there, or whatever, or on the
Yep.
on
It's
the
just
left. Okay.
the old railroad base is still there, and they built the trail up in Holliston the same way.
Okay. So it's just going to be more gravel. Okay, good.
Joyce, I have a question for you. I have a couple questions for you. One is, well, first of all, obviously I've walked here and we actually noticed this before it came to our attention. So I agree, it's a safety issue and it's good to get it fixed before winter sets in. But I did want to ask you, I have the stream crossing handbook with the stream crossing standards. Do you think that the current culvert meets the stream crossing standards? Because it seems like Massachusetts is moving toward, crossings with culverts that have a wider bottom. And I guess they're saying here that they should span a minimum of 1.2 times the bankful width of the stream. So do you have any thoughts about long-term, whether we should be looking at maybe trying to get some funding to replace the culvert here?
Well, I guess if there came a time where the culvert needed to be replaced, that might be something to think about. The issue here is you want to be careful changing the size of a culvert because you don't want to change the hydrology downstream. So if this were to go forward, if at some point Holliston and Sherborn decided that culvert needed to be replaced because it's in both towns, that would certainly be something to discuss, whether it be a span or a culvert. But right now the culvert is in great shape and not something that we're proposing to change.
I think my understanding just from looking at this is a couple of things. One is that it shouldn't, in any case, a culvert shouldn't change the flow, right? So it shouldn't change the flow downstream in any case.
Right. Yep.
Right. So, and then scouring and erosion are symptoms of an undersized culvert.
So the culvert here is not running, except when it was blocked. The culvert is not running even half full. So I don't believe the culvert has been a problem, and this has been the same culvert since the rail bed was in place. Again, if there comes a time where the culvert fails, that should be something that is at least talked about. You're right. If we're changing a crossing or we're changing a culvert, we look to do open bottom or embedded culverts so that,
Right.
but not in, this is not the case in here. Good point though.
Okay. Any other feedback, questions from anybody, commissioners or anybody else who's in attendance?
No.
Okay. In terms of an order and that kind of stuff, Joyce, is that something that we'll need to prepare, or is that something you did as part of your preparation of the NOI application?
Well, I didn't prepare it. I am looking for, I'd be happy to assist with that because they really want to, I did end up getting a DEP file number. So it is possible to close this. And if I didn't, I was going to ask if we could do this under an emergency order so that they could do the work right away.
Right.
And since the order isn't written and not able to be signed, I guess I would ask if we could do an emergency order so they can, because I'm afraid what's going to happen is it's going to freeze and he won't be able to get out there.
Exactly.
In the meantime, for the next meeting, we could have an order prepared for to ratify it after the fact.
That all sounds reasonable to me. Does anybody object to that approach?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Like we're at the point where just the ground's freezing, everything's freezing up, so we should get out there as fast as we can. Okay. So in that case, I think what we'll do is let's close this hearing. We'll do basically what we did for the previous NOI, where we'll draft an order and the rest of that. And then, you know, in the meantime, well, let's see. What we've done in the past when we do emergencies is we usually issue a letter of some kind, you know, just basically saying you're authorized to proceed with the work, even though, you know, it hasn't been approved formally and all that kind of stuff. So I think we'll need to do that. And Anna, you know, maybe either, well, Joyce, you're sort of out of the picture on that, but unless you want to help. But basically between Jean, Anna, myself, and you, Joyce, we'll get a letter put together just to allow DPW to get out there as fast as possible. Okay, so if that sounds reasonable to everybody, I move that we close this hearing.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, Neil, aye. Michael?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. So Anna will have to put together a letter, but this is sort of formal notification that you can go forward with what the plan is, and we'll get a letter to you in short order.
Perfect.
And then we'll work to get the order together for the next meeting. Okay,
right.
great. Thank you.
Thank you
for
very
all
much.
that. Yeah, thank you for the work on that. Okay.
I'm going to leave you all unless you don't think you need me for anything else. Have a good night.
Don't think so.
One quick little thing is before you go, Joyce, I can't tell if John Hyde just entered recently. I think he's with the yacht club.
He did.
Okay.
He
And
did
whether
just
we
enter,
just need to, whether we already covered everything or he had something to say.
No, I think, John, we've covered everything. We've covered
Okay.
everything for the work that you're going to be doing for the yacht club. And I'll go
Okay.
over that with you after the meeting.
Okay, great.
Okay?
All right.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
you. Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Hey, Michael.
All right. Okay, so moving to the next, the next hearing is at 8:30, so we can go back to minutes if that makes sense.
Sure.
We're gonna have a gap here, I think, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, you guys let me know when you're through at this page.
It seems like this paragraph about the rail trail is a little bit repetitive.
Yeah.
And perhaps the sentence, second to last sentence, could just be removed completely, or add the bit about recent rainstorms to the sentence above, maybe. Because we have the error about it being collapsing again.
Yeah, right. Um, I guess the washed out is what we'd want to just say, partly due to a large rainstorm. I mean, it's this statement here, whether we, I mean, I left it in there because we have this statement here about clarification, but we could maybe just delete all of that I've just shaded.
I agree.
That makes sense?
Yep.
Did you actually go to a Holliston Concom meeting based on this thing? I remember it came up.
I did. Yeah.
I did too.
Oh. Let me know when I can move on.
I'm good with this screen.
Okay, anything else there? I should just move, let's see, so it's 5. What were the other votes? So who left the meeting? Who left the meeting for the last? Okay, we have to figure out.
I think Courtney might have. I'm going by memory because I don't have my.
Oh, yes, right, we couldn't tell.
But I think Courtney
had-
might have.
The screen was there, but nothing else.
Yeah, I think that was Courtney.
I probably left at that point.
Guess we should go up front maybe and I guess we'll say you left at 9:30. Okay, I move that we accept the minutes as edited.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, Neil, aye. Michael,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. So what should we do? Let's see.
How about the warrant?
Is there a warrant?
Yep.
Yes.
Did I sign it? That's the real question.
Hey,
I
that's not
did.
the-
What's that? I did. Did I do it,
No,
Elizabeth?
I did.
Oh, you did. Oh, right.
Anna can sign it as a department head, so you don't have to do that anymore.
You forgot what that's like.
I've affixing my. I'm very paranoid about my electronic signatures, and so I go to great lengths to put an electronic signature in, but make it so that it cannot be abstracted as an image easily. So I'm really happy to not do that anymore. So, what is in the warrant? If somebody wants to let us know.
It is postage for $20 or $21, and then Ed Barry's invoice. It's in the Dropbox for $3,000 change for mowing the fields.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you for signing, Anna. And Elizabeth for telling us what's on it. All right. So next thing, Are there any site issues or questions?
I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
The 55 Farm Road. Could you give an update of whether it's an appeal, and plus the whole idea of an appeal by I guess I don't know if we've had an appeal by an abutter.
I can
What
give
that all
you
means.
I can give you an update. I don't think we should discuss it substantively because we're just sort of, I think we would want to invite the involved parties, but I can certainly update you. But
Yeah, I just want to
basically-
understand what the logistics or whatever the thing is about. You know.
Right. So, actually, Anna, do you want to do that? You're the one sort of taking point on it. Go right ahead.
Sure. There was an appeal, but it was not filed within what DEP has very clearly said to us today was the appeal window. And so DEP has denied the appeal, and that's where we are.
And I will also, just to add a couple of details, we had conversations with DEP today. Because earlier in the day Anna had requested that the applicant stop work until we resolve whether the appeal had been filed in a timely fashion. We got the feedback from DEP that it wasn't. So we also let the applicant know that they could proceed at risk, because the abutter who appealed could certainly appeal the decision to deny by DEP, but we told them, or Anna emailed them earlier this afternoon to let them know that they could proceed. So that's where it stands.
So maybe I have to go educate myself. So who has the ability to appeal our decisions in order of conditions? Is only abutters, anybody in town? I mean, I'm just curious whether we know who has the standing to appeal
Anybody.
these. Anybody, okay.
Anybody, that's what it states on the WPA Form 5 under appeals. If you want
I
to,
know,
you
I
can pull
guess
it
I
up
haven't
on,
read it. Yeah, it's
in
okay.
Reddit.
I just didn't have time to go look at where it figured that out, but okay. So it's such a rare event for us. Okay. So we'll have to go here. So do we know if the appeal of the denial has been pursued, or we don't know?
We just told them today that we basically got a verbal from DEP that it was going to be denied, and that information.
Verbal. Okay.
And Anna, and they're supposed to follow up with an email, but Anna sent an email this afternoon to the person who filed the appeal and the applicant, stating that it had been denied. And so if they're going to file an appeal, I'm assuming it would happen not today, because it's fresh.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on that? Okay, great. Anna, do you want to bring us up to speed on Constitution Village?
Yeah, I would be happy to. And Courtney, feel free to add, of course. So the Holliston Conservation Commission issued an amended order of conditions enforcement order before ratifying. I mean, what they ratified was amended. And the amended enforcement order is in the shared folder. The thing that I want to draw our attention to that I think is potentially relevant to you all in ratifying, I hope that you will ratify the emergency enforcement order that I sent out and just signed it myself, because it won't really have any ongoing force unless you all, officially get behind it. Maybe I will see if I can share my screen. If I may share my screen.
Of course.
but maybe I don't have the information right on hand, so maybe I won't. Let's see. Oh, I know where it is. Right, as I just said, it's in the folder. That is where it is, in the shared folder. It's something that they added about going and looking at having somebody go and do an evaluation of what the damage is. And in our previous order, or in our order as it is, and in their unamended order, it was pretty vague what they were asking in terms of remediation. And Holliston has now spelled it out much more clearly that they're looking for an evaluation, and they have a deadline for the evaluation, and they have a deadline for a proposal of a mitigation plan. And I think it would be good to line those up, potentially have the same deadline, have the same language, have the same deadline on ours, rather than asking the development company to do two mitigation plans or do two different deadlines, so that we really are clear that we want them to have somebody evaluate it who is a wetland scientist or who has a background in wetland science, and propose a mitigation plan for the sediment that has now, and it will continue to settle and have impacts on both the stream bed and the bordering wetlands. I don't actually, I closed the tab. So are people able to look at the folder themselves, or would you like me to share it?
I can look at it. Let's see.
I'm looking. So the issue is whether we're expanding our enforcement order.
Michael, do you want to share screen since you have it right now?
Oh, I'm looking at, let's see, which one do we want to have? We want the, you want to look at which document you're looking at? You want to look at what they have, or? I guess I've been looking at.
I would look at Holliston's amended one.
Okay. Let's see here. Is this the enforcement order that I have here? Okay. Notification to accompany the enforcement order.
That's the right page. It's on that first page.
Oh, it is that first page. Okay.
Yeah. So
fine.
if you can share your screen, that would be excellent, please, because you're a step ahead of me.
Let's see. We've got it here. I don't want screen two. Where do we got it here? Oh no. Yeah. This is what we're talking about here.
Yes, it's bullet, or it's number 3 there, an inspection analysis
Right,
of downstream BMPs in the resource area. Exactly.
I would only comment in the second bullet, an inspection and analysis of downstream BMPs and resource areas to determine, and I would almost change the word if to what.
Well, unfortunately, I might disagree with you in that it's possible that a remediation could be more damaging than helpful, and maybe leaving alone might be the way to go. But
Well,
you might.
To me,
I'm
the
not
what,
sure.
the what could covers both if and if there's something. This sort of, because if they say, because if they decide that there's some remediation is warranted, okay, report. Oh, and then they have the proposed so they submitted. I mean, they already have almost a presumption that there's some restoration and mitigation in that second hollow bullet.
That's true.
That's why, to me, I mean, they could still say what could still include no remediation. But since they're almost presuming something. So that's not a big deal, but I like what they wrote.
So I have ours up now, and currently our enforcement order says a restoration plan shall be filed by December 9th, which would be enough time for us to review it for our next meeting, which is earlier. I think the restoration plan needs to be submitted. Holliston said, actually, Michael, yeah, if you can keep up Holliston's, I think that would be.
Okay, I mean, I could pull up both.
Let's say December 14th.
They said December 14th. You can do it.
Yeah.
And I now have the documents at my fingertips too. So, so we had said December 9th, and just that it was remediation of significant sediment loading and its potential impacts.
That's December 9th in hours, I guess, per.
So, and
is this, I'm going to just change you one thing so that you could be clear about something. Stop share. I'm going to share the screen.
so while you're talking, I just have a question, Anna, because you had mentioned this before, and maybe I missed what you meant. Were you talking about getting in sync with the Holliston enforcement order, or actually doing a single order?
I'm suggesting that unless it's more complicated than I realize, that you as the commission amend your order before you ratify it, and to make this part in sync with the Holliston order.
Because
am I showing you? Oh, sorry.
Because I guess my question is, if we've got, like, it makes a lot of sense to me for us to be in lockstep with Holliston in terms of dates and the rest of it. Because if we're requiring it by the 9th, let's say, for this remediation plan or restoration plan, whatever it is, and they want it by the 14th, the applicant or the person who's the subject of enforcement can certainly take what they produce for us on the 9th and give it to them on the 14th. But if there's anything that's like substantively different in terms of what we are requiring, we should probably try to coordinate with them to make sure that they're in sync. Is that what we're doing? Just want to make sure.
I don't think that there's anything substantively different. It was just that we are asking for something more vague and asking for it earlier.
And so I apologize again, because I kind of got a little lost there. But so the thing that we're asking for that's more vague, is more vague better because it's broader, or more vague that it's not as good and we should sort of crib off of Holliston's?
Yeah, Michael's got it here. It looks like you're circling.
That's what little we have there versus.
Well, actually, Michael,
Plus,
also go to page 3, please.
This is what you're talking about down here?
Nope, a couple more pages. I think that's page 2. Oh, there. So at the top, D, it's right before D.
Keep going.
There it is. That tiny little bit. Remediation of significant sediment loading right at the top of the page.
This little thing here.
Yep. So that's, yep.
I can't see a damn thing.
This thing, I could make it larger.
Thank you. It's a little small.
Let's see, what size? We'll make it lot 2. Oops, the wrong one, sorry, guys.
There we go. Thank you.
So we have this what little we have here as versus what they have here, a little bit more. I mean, I could see expanding to what they have. Obviously, we don't have it. We'll have a different article here, but
I would agree with that, just because I understand trying to be all encompassing with language, but also if you don't ask for specific things, you might not necessarily get those specific things back from the applicant. So, just making sure that the things that we want are all in there.
and I don't mind. Right, I don't know how much we want to go and give them the break and go with the December 14th date versus our 9th date. Because
No.
it's only a week. Or
I think we should stick with the 9th because
Yeah,
we're going to need time to digest it. We may not get it by the 9th anyway.
exactly.
Let's give ourselves the time. These guys, discharge a tremendous amount of sediment into this, jurisdictional areas. They can hop to it. So,
okay, point taken. So the question is
The
whether
only
we
thing,
yeah.
with the inspection, that would force the inspection to take place before then. But hopefully they would have a chance to do that as well.
So let's just so we're clear. So I can see that bullet point 2 there under item 3. It says an inspection analysis of downstream BMPs and resource areas to determine if remediation is warranted. Well, so isn't this enforcement order already in place?
As of today.
But part of the issue too is that this doesn't sound like this was the beginning of everything, right? They had been told to cease and desist, and they didn't. They kept going for 2 days. And then I think there have been, from what I understand from the Holliston meeting, there have been multiple requests for documents and things, and they've had radio silence.
Actually, that is all true, but Ryan got the documents up to today. The documents that they have requested after issuing some fines yesterday.
Okay, but I think, well, to Courtney's probably, if your general point is that they've been at times reluctant or slow to respond, then that may be something we want to account for in whatever we issue.
So at this point, we're going to keep the December 9th on our thing. The question is whether the wording literally in the second bullet here, and this third bullet, whether we just want to copy this into our enforcement order, and whether we want, what wording changes do we want to make? Like I want to say what instead of if, and obviously jurisdiction areas, we don't need this little thing here. Is that what we're down to? Is just doing that little wordsmithing?
Is it as easy to amend a previously issued enforcement order as it sounds?
Oh, I see what you're meaning. Because this was signed. When was this done?
I think the
yeah, sorry. Cindy, you have your hand raised. You wanted to make a comment?
I do. I have a question. So is this enforcement order, Anna, have you already issued it?
Yes, it was issued on the 22nd.
Yeah, it's dated the 23rd.
So are you asking us to
sorry, the
ratify
23rd.
something different?
So you need to ratify it anyway, because this is the first meeting since I did an emergency issuing of it.
So can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Anna. I just want to be, because I guess I want to. I'm lost a little bit in the sequencing. So let me just get some clarification so we can know what decision to make. So you issued an enforcement order, the one that's on the right-hand side, back on the 22nd. Did Holliston issue an enforcement that was similar to yours, or did it have all of this verbiage that we're looking at now, or is this an amended order from them?
This is amended. The significant thing that I am noting that is different is this particular part that we've been talking about with the habitat, with the inspection. That is all much more detailed since they met on the 30th.
Right, and it says in that sentence above it, the enforcement order issued on November 19th was ratified with amendments by the Conservation Commission on this date. So we're sort of, what you're asking us to do is kind of amend in whatever way we think is reasonable, and then ratify, and then you'll reissue.
Correct.
Then let's just do that. I don't
Right,
think
I'm
it's
looking
I don't
down
think it's a
here.
problem.
Because when they issued that letter, here you see here,
Yeah,
you have you have a date and then it's ratified. And I can't tell whether this is the per site. I'm trying to think if there's anything changed in the actual Form 9 is what I guess, in terms of, if we want to just get this straight, whether they changed anything in the Form 9 when they amended it.
so here, rather than go through, try to do this now in a meeting, why don't we do this? Let me suggest a course of action. If everybody's in general agreement that we want to poach the language that Holliston added to their original enforcement order, changing the relevant details like the word that you want what instead of if, and then in addition change, like it says it's referencing some article that's a local, to Holliston, so we'd have to change that. I would suggest that we actually, if Anna can, go through the whole thing, see what else they might have changed in comparison to their original, make the same kinds of changes. I think I'm perfectly fine with saying Anna should just go ahead and do that. We don't need to meet again, and she can work with Jean and I to make sure that it's all on the up and up if we want to do that, and then we can just ratify it tonight. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think we have to ratify tonight.
We do.
I'd like to.
So let's do this. I move that we take all of the additions or modifications that Holliston made with the other edits I just described, revise or amend our own enforcement order, ratify it, and reissue it.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor, Neil, aye. Michael?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
Jessica?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, wonderful.
We have another thing that I'd like to show you. For those, this is what they looked like when they did their fining letter that's in the box.
Nice.
Yeah, I saw that.
So they were not able, and maybe Courtney can speak to this as well, because they were not able to backdate.
Yeah.
They were only able to start at their
Yeah.
meeting.
I rained on their parade a little bit because potentially I think with the way they had everything worked out, they could have fined them like $24,000. But the issue is, of course, the it's a civil ticketing procedure, and it's not like a wetlands enforcement. We aren't allowed to issue fines like that. Only DEP can do it. So the Mass General law that covers it say the fines have to be issued within, I misremembered, I said 10 days, but it's 15 days of the violation coming to your awareness, which I brought it up to them because obviously we know all about that. But I'm glad they were able to find something that worked out better than nothing.
So they have two different days. This is the December 1st on the left and December 2nd on the right.
Yeah, the December 2nd is additional fines that had accrued on December 2nd. And then by then, I guess that's today. So they didn't have all the documents they needed this morning. And so they put these fines on for the third day of not getting the documents. And then they did get the documents today. And so Ryan, the agent, says he doesn't expect to issue any more fines for those particular documents that were outstanding.
Okay, but this first top part here on the left is actual, whether there's actual ongoing, the bottom seems to be just data or the failure to sell. Is what do we get? I guess I'll just say, are there any, did we do any fines, and are we going to?
We had not.
voted to do that.
What?
It's
Anna
too
said
late
we
to
had
do that.
not.
Sorry, Carol, did you have your hand up? You wanted to say something?
Yes, yes, I did. Because I pulled out my trusty wetlands enforcement manual. I just want to be clear about something. So Anna already issued the enforcement order that she's presenting to us. Is that correct? Because it had to be issued immediately.
Correct.
So it says here that a commissioner or commission agent may issue an enforcement order in a situation requiring immediate action. However, the enforcement order must be ratified by a majority vote of the commission at the next scheduled meeting. Then it goes on to say, the enforcement order can be ratified subject to any amendments made by the commission at its meeting after discussions with the violator. And I guess the question I'd have is, I wonder if we actually should have ratified the enforcement order as it has been delivered to the violator, and then go back and amend it. And I'm just bringing that up because if we've ratified an amended enforcement order, it has to be delivered to the violator.
I think you're right, Carol, as just a point of process. I think what you're saying is correct. That, yeah.
But
I
Carol,
guess
you just read something which could be interpreted either way.
Yes, I guess I am suggesting that to be on the safe side, we probably should ratify the enforcement order that has already been delivered to the violator before making any changes, amendments. That would be my suggestion, but I agree with you, Neil. It's not very clear here.
Right. It basically says it has to be ratified with any amendments. So can you read the language again?
I will. Okay, so it says the enforcement order must be ratified. I'll start over. A commissioner or commission agent may issue an enforcement order in a situation requiring immediate action, which is what Anna already did. However, the enforcement order must be ratified by a majority vote of the commission at the next scheduled public meeting. And by the way, if you want to check, it says C310 CMR 10.08 parentheses 3. Ratified means a formal vote by the Conservation Commission that approves and sanctions the action taken by the conservation agent or a member of the commission. The enforcement order can be ratified subject to any amendments made by the commission at its meeting after discussions with the violator. Failure to ratify the enforcement order may render it void.
Right. See, I mean, if I might, ratify subject to amendments. That's ratifying with any amendments, isn't it? I mean, that's how I would read that.
I really don't know. To me, it looks to me like we have to ratify the order that has been issued. That would be how I interpret it, but maybe
that's how I'm interpreting it too, Carol. As you read it, I just listened to read it, and it's just sitting back and listening and comprehending it, and it sounded to me like we need to ratify what was sent by Anna originally, and then go back and do any amendments and changes, whatever, and then ratify that. And yeah, I think on the safe side, that's what we should do. Just on the safe side, like crossing all T's and dotting all I's. That's what I would do. That's my suggestion.
And keeping in mind that one of the things they point out is that everything has to be carefully documented because this is a legal action. So that's where I'm just saying to be on. Sure. I agree with what Cindy just said.
Okay. I move that I don't know the right language, but it's okay. I move that we discard the previous motion that was made and voted on.
Well, we don't have to. We could just approve
No, you have to. We voted on it. It's a motion. It is passed. It has to either be, because we've done it in one piece in the other one. We have to
I was
get,
going to say, if we just do a separate motion where we ratify what she already gave
and they're
them,
in conflict with each other.
I guess I wouldn't say that they're in
I
conflict.
agree with
Okay.
Neil. We need to discard the previous motion and then start all over again.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, Neil, I, Cindy,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
getting lost here. Carol,
Aye.
Jessica?
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. I now move that we ratify the enforcement order that was issued by Anna. I don't know what the date was.
I think it was November 23rd.
On
Yes.
November 23rd.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, Neil, I, Carol,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Jessica,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
Motion carries. I move that we authorize Anna to make the amendments that have previously been discussed in consultation with the vice chair and chair, and to issue an amended enforcement order to the violator.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, Neil, I, Cindy, Cindy, sorry. Good for you.
Cindy,
I'm trying to power through this. We're 5 minutes late. Jessica,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
did I get Carol?
No, aye.
Thank you. All right. The
I'm
motion
gonna raise-
carries.
Okay. One little thing is whether we should, if you ever talk to town council, check on whether those kind of motions work, where we just say based on discussion, blah, blah.
Sure. Okay. Let's stop screen sharing so we can see who's present and counted for. And let's see, what do we have to do? We've got reopening the hearing into 2123 South Main Street, continue from 11:18.
Neil, the hearing's
I
closed.
believe that,
The hearing's closed.
Okay.
we
So
were just looking at the order of conditions.
oh, okay. So, all right. So this is not got it. Thank you. When you said the hearing's closed, I was sort of just not understanding what you meant. Now we
And
do.
I can pull that up.
Great. Thank you.
So I sent this around and did get just a couple of comments. I think what I want to do is fly through the notes on the side first, if that's okay.
Yes.
So I do expect to get revised plans tomorrow or Monday that have the moved boundary marker, which we have not seen yet on a plan, and the seed mix, which we haven't seen on the plan. And Brandon will get that to us, and we'll be able to put that in C there. And then, oops. So this is just my being new to now I'm calling it enforcement order, special orders of condition, special conditions. I'm not sure in B here whether the site means the property, or whether it means the whole parcel, or whether it just means the limit of work area, because the parcel itself does include the 0 to 50 as well as a BBW, but the limit of work is just within the 50 to 100.
The site usually means the property.
Okay, so I will fix that, not right now, but I will be sure to fix that.
But
Okay.
do we want to change the word site to the project? I mean, that's the other way to go with this going forward, since this is sort of boilerplate, and I'm not quite sure whether it's best.
What have we done in the past? I don't know that I've ever paid much attention
Yeah,
to.
I haven't either. That's why I'm thinking that I think we've been too loose about. I think it's easier to just call it the
The limit
project.
of, right, or you can say the limit of work or yeah.
I think because that way, then we have to keep always worrying about whatever is on the site or there. And plus, sometimes it can go off. We have buffer zones to things that are on another property, but whatever. So I think it might be better
Well,
going forward.
Well, the only thing I'd say is though is that you don't want to restrict it to the limit of work, because if your limit of work is, in proximity to a resource area, you still want to know that. But I guess it still has to be in jurisdiction. I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Well, I mean, what I would expect to see there, and I don't, Anna, is this taken from other orders of conditions that we've had in the past?
Yes.
And if we use the terminology site there?
Yes.
Yeah.
And in the Apple, Courtney, do you want to?
I also just took it from previous orders of condition. I didn't have like a magic template. So, maybe at some point we should sit down and look at this and revise the language, but this is what we've been saying.
Guess we do have to clean it up, and whether we have to look and see whether there's any advice from MACC or some other orders of conditions as to all this, whether this is as good a time as any to sort of just review some of this boilerplate.
Well, I think the safest thing to do is to say the site. So you're referencing the parcel and whatever jurisdictional areas are there. So we should add then the 0 to 50. And if there's resource areas, then that as well.
Sure, I would agree with that for now. Yeah.
Okay. And then, as Brandon pointed out today, I had a typo here. I had said it is within an estimated habitat, and it is not.
Okay.
And this was one of these conditions that I added in based on the discussion at the last meeting.
I like it in perpetuity.
And do we want to say anything about immediate? What is immediate? What do we mean by immediately?
So I'm sorry. What would be in perpetuity about this? This is just a construction related.
No, this is. Sorry.
So this is an area drain that is going to continue to be on the property, and it's a very small area drain, but it's an area drain that it's the outlet is not on our jurisdiction, but it has potential to cause erosion in our jurisdiction. And would we want monitoring in perpetuity?
I see.
So this condition is like a 15. That one is like a boilerplate kind of one, right?
No, I wrote that.
You wrote this, okay. I don't. It's tough because it's outside of our jurisdiction.
Agreed.
So I don't think we can mandate something like that.
Well, the erosion would be where we would be looking at. What I meant to write is that we would be looking at erosion in the buffer zone.
I think it should be.
So what we've run into in the past is that like we can't say, oh, be careful not to do that with your septic system that's just outside the buffer zone. Like it's not our problem until the discharge like crosses the line, basically.
Right. So right.
I'm not explaining what. Well,
I totally get what you are saying.
Well, so yeah, in the past, what it is until it becomes an actual event that's impacting jurisdictional areas, in which time it becomes subject, it's either a violation or it becomes a subject of enforcement, you can't regulate any activity outside your jurisdiction. That's the issue.
Yeah, but I would say we still could have something further down in post-construction, something like this where, and I'm trying to think of where the wording is here, that if erosion,
Well,
installed properly, I guess where the 14 covers any problems with erosion during construction. Do you think
So-
14 covers any erosion problems during construction? And I would move 15 down and say that we don't need a construction supervisor. We just say that that any erosion in the buffer zone from discharge, I would shorten it. Any erosion in the buffer zone by discharge from the area drain outfall should be mitigated, should be I guess
addressed.
and that's in perpetuity because of its proximity, and that way it is limited to what's in our jurisdiction. Just
I
move
agree.
it down to post-construction as a perpetuity.
I agree. And 14 really does get at this, the during construction elements. I think that addresses it just fine. But yeah, let's take this and we'll, maybe the word immediately will need to modify. Such erosion shall be addressed, either within we can specify a time period. We could use terms like a timely fashion or,
Yeah.
whatever, however we want to describe that.
I like the timely fashion, and any erosion should be correct. Any erosion in the buffer zone or sediment should be, as we call, mitigated. I'm blanking on the better word. Addressed. Okay, fine.
And we can also say, you can say in a timely fashion in coordination with a commission representative. That way, like you're sort of, in other words, if you come along and say this is an issue and they're going to have to get you, like or you say it's an issue and a week later they haven't done anything, they're not coordinating with you, so that you have kind of your hands on the process as it goes forward.
Okay.
All right. That sounds good.
And then, so construction, post-construction. This is one of the boilerplate ones that says no burning. But when I spoke with Brandon Barry today, he pointed out that the burning that Alex Weatherall has proposed, that the commission has said he can do, I believe, would be pre-construction, maybe. I'm not sure. That's why I was hoping you could discuss this.
To my recollection, the only burning that we were going to allow him to do is just this one time this fall, or maybe it was the spring, but it was not an ongoing thing. He said, well, can he just burn that one pile?
Yeah.
And we were kind of like, yeah, fine, just burn that one pile, but no more after that.
And is that pre-construction?
Right.
That was not clear to me. That was not clear.
He said January, and it's not clear when the construction is going to happen. To me, it's not clear.
Yeah, so I think, after burning the existing brush pile, there should be no further burning, dumping of leaves, yada, yada.
Do we have a separate condition about this one-time burning? Or
No.
Okay, then it's not really post-construction, and we should probably put a condition in there that says, I don't know where you'd put
brush
it.
piles should be burned in January when the fire department says you can. I don't know.
Right, during permitted burn period, that kind of thing. So Anna, is there? Sorry, I'm like asking you to sort of scroll through this. I can scroll through it myself. I just want to see what the sections are. You can throw it into special conditions.
Is there a special conditions section?
There is. It's a big section, and then it has administrative, erosion control, installation and monitoring, pre-construction, construction. I would put it in pre-construction. Just say, a one-time burning of existing brush pile to be conducted in January of 2022 during a period of time permitted by the Sherborn Fire Department. And then if you want to be redundant, just for effect, you can say no other burning, is permitted. See post-construction condition number such and so, and then you put it in. And then you actually don't have to change the post-construction condition because it's post-construction, it's understood, and it's just not allowed other than whatever's been referenced elsewhere.
Okay. And then I guess I didn't mark it, but somewhere I put in another condition that I wrote. So I would like you to look at it about the Japanese knotweed. Where did I put that?
It's number 32.
Thank you, Neil.
That does seem like what we requested in the meeting.
That's fine.
Okay, terrific. That is all I wanted to go over on this.
Okay. Do other people have any comments or questions?
Nope. Just good luck renumbering and adding the extra perpetuity.
Yep. All right. So I'm assuming, Anna, you sort of jotting down notes of these edits that we're discussing.
Yes.
Okay. Are we at all concerned that we don't, at sort of reading the findings and voting to approve or deny if we get there, does anybody have any issue with the fact that we're missing a couple of documents for, what's supposed to be on the site plan and that kind of thing?
Well, you could just add it to the motion, subject to.
Yeah, subject to. I like subject to.
Okay. All right. In that case, I'm going to do my little awkward reading of the findings because I never get the motion to approve correct, but that's really okay.
Better you than me.
It's like, in between meetings, I should actually just one day sit down and just figure out how to read the damn thing correctly, but I never remember, and then I'm always here doing it. So, all right.
Please do that.
All right. Well, if somebody wants to take that on for me and give me a script, I'm wonderful at that. It's like reading the teleprompter in Anchorman. All right. So let's see. I think I'll just start at E. I move that the Sherborn Conservation Commission find that the following conditions are necessary to protect the wetland resource for the duration of this proposed project. The Commission orders that all work shall be performed in accordance with said conditions and with the notice of intent referenced in the special conditions section of this order, with the edits discussed this evening, and understanding that there are still a couple of documents that have been articulated to be included. To the extent that the following conditions modify or differ from the plans, specifications, or other proposals submitted with the notice of intent, the condition shall control. Following review of the above referenced notice of intent and based on the information provided in this application as discussed tonight and presented at the public hearing, and discussed tonight, this commission finds that the area in which work is proposed is significant to the following interests of the Sherborn Wetland Bylaw: quality and quantity of public and private water supplies, quality and quantity of groundwater supplies, as well as recharge and storage areas, flood control, storm damage prevention, prevention of pollution, prevention of erosion, and wildlife habitat. Furthermore, the Sherborn Conservation Commission hereby finds that the proposed project is approved, subject to the findings and conditions contained herein, with edits discussed this evening. Do I have a second?
I'll second and add discussion.
Discussion.
Whether you should put in the beginning a friendly amendment to notice that all of these findings are for the Sherborn Fuel Project at 2123 South Main Street.
Sorry, where are you suggesting that go?
That's part of the motion, that we reference actually the project, since everything was totally in the abstract without that.
Right. I mean, we owe it whenever we do these motions, but oftentimes it's in the same evening. So I will accept your friendly amendment. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor: Neil, aye. Michael?
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Jessica.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. Okay, and Anna, if you have any questions about that, I'm assuming you'll circulate a draft, just, like this is what it came out to be, just so everybody can have a look at it.
Sure.
Okay, fantastic. All right, what are we looking at time-wise? We've got 6 minutes burning a hole in our pocket. Do we want to administrative approvals? There's a couple of those.
Yes.
All right, if you want to just maybe tell us what they are and so on.
Yes. There were two that were outside of our jurisdiction, so they were straightforward administrative approvals. 15 Kendall Avenue, a deck repair and addition, and 97 Washington Street for soil testing.
Okay. That's it for our agenda. I do want to wait until 9 o'clock. So maybe if people want to just take a moment. Oh, yeah. Anna.
Yeah, I do have other agent report stuff, but
Okay.
I also am in favor of taking a moment.
Well, if we want to take a moment, that's great. How much stuff do you have to cover as part of your agent report?
I think it's just the wetland boundaries.
Okay. Why don't we take that up afterwards? And I think we should probably, if you're going to do an agent report as a sort of a standalone thing, it's fine to do it as part of site issues now, but let's get it on the agenda as kind of a permanent fixture.
Okay.
All right. So if people want to take a couple minutes, get a drink of water, refresh yourself, stretch. We'll be back in a moment.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Do we have everybody back? Let's see. Fellow commissioners, do we have everybody?
I'm here.
Errol, I see. Michael, I see. I see myself.
I'm here.
Jessica's
I'm
there.
back. I'm here.
All right, great. Okay, wonderful. All right, I'm reopening, or I'm sorry. It's been, we did not close the hearing because we've been continuing.
Right.
Sorry, it's like I'm conflating about 17 NOIs we've got before us. So I am reopening the hearing into Coolidge Crossing, or 8486 Coolidge Street. And we've had a couple of continuations. Just to update people, I did send a note around, but just to kind of state this for the record, that we did not end up getting the stormwater conditions that we had envisioned, and so decided to forego use of what we did get, which was not exactly, well, it did not meet with what the requirements were that we laid out. So we just made the decision to just go without them and save the applicant the expense and us the, we didn't think we were getting a lot of value add for it. So just to let people know that. So with that said, I guess maybe Matt Byrne, if I can prevail upon you to kind of bring us up to speed. I know you've had some conversations with Matt Leidner. We got some documents in from the applicant earlier this week, and just wanted to, if you could get us up to speed on where things stand.
Sure. Thanks. Good evening. Matt Byrne with BSC Group, peer review consultant to the commission. The last time we met on October 28th, I had shared around and we discussed a draft special conditions document that the applicant had had a chance to review and provide feedback on, and that the chair had also provided some comment to. And so that has been revised, and we were waiting for those the stormwater management conditions. But at this point, I think we're ready to share back the special conditions as they stand. We got, as you mentioned, Neil, yesterday received some updated project materials, including the landscape operations and management plan and exhibit, stormwater O&M plan, declaration of restriction, and associated exhibit. I've drafted a letter in response to those new materials we've received. I thought, by and large, they are very good, and I'm pleased with what we received from there. I had just a few very minor suggestions that I wanted to pass by Matt and the applicant, but those all look good, and I think I have no substantive comments for those materials. So that's kind of where we stand at the moment.
Matt, if I might ask you, I know that it was a point of some back and forth regarding construction monitoring and who would be doing it, and I don't know if you discussed that, and if you did, if you could bring us up to speed on where things stand with that.
Thanks. That was the last sort of substantive piece that we were waiting for from the applicant. I think they were waiting for so forth. So what Matt and I had discussed was coming up with a strategy that provides a cost-effective way for the commission to have a construction monitor or have that function without hiring a construction monitor to be on site throughout the construction program. And what Matt and I had discussed, and I think this was in the applicant's court to decide and put something on paper for a proposal. But the outline was that the applicant has CDG engaged as the construction monitor for the course of the work, and that the commission would hire a a person to review the weekly reports that come out of their monitoring process. And there'd be a small budget available for occasional site visits when or if it appeared to be necessary based on, findings of a weekly report or a major storm event or something along those lines. So that was the rough idea of what we had discussed, and we were waiting to hear back from the applicant on what they'd actually like to propose for a program there.
Through the chair, could I respond to that?
Please.
Yes, what Matt just said is the understanding that we heard from Matt Leidner with Matt, and that we would submit weekly reports to the Conservation Commission. You would have whomever you want review that. And between the two Matts, it was discussed that there would be a $5,000 budget for the town to use, or the Concom to use as they see fit, when they see fit, through the process if they want to have someone come out on an occasional basis. As Matt said, whether there's a special storm event or for whatever reason you want, to have a $5,000 budget that we would pay for, and we're fine with that if that's agreeable with the board.
So just because I don't have the experience with what the costs would be, Matt Byrne, with what you're suggesting, somebody reviewing the reports and having an occasional visit, given the time span proposed for the project, do you think that the $5,000 would cover that for a consultant to do that?
What we were talking about was, and I'll have to, I'd like to confer with Matt. I was hoping to be able to talk with him just to make sure, but I think we were talking about an hour a week for the review and reporting back to the commission. And then I thought, Roy, that the budget was going to be for, I don't know if that amount covers the entire process. I think that we should.
That was my understanding in talking to Matt. I think you're correct on that. My understanding was the $5,000 was for use if you wanted to do site visits, having separate than the hour a week for the review. Correct.
Yeah.
So maybe that's another couple $1,000s or whatever it is.
Right.
Okay, so we're talking about some budget for whatever it would be for an hour. Like essentially, you'd be willing to pay reasonable costs at an hour a week, and then in addition $5,000 for whatever site visits might be required through the life of the project.
Correct.
Okay. Michael?
I want, in terms of I guess whether we would specify what the two things. One is the weekly reports, whether we want to just be clear about what they are in terms of whether we just want photographs or something. Maybe we just want to get agreement as to what that weekly report would be, so that in a sense, hopefully we minimize the cost of review. I'd like to think if it's done well and whatever else, that you wouldn't even need an hour a week for those kind of report reviews if there's adequate, whether it's photos and this and that. I just want to make sure we get the content of that report. And then the second thing is that I'd like to add within the review by this person, we'd have to see it. It's something that I only briefly brought up before, but I think we probably should have highlighted, is that we do need a review, and maybe that's part of the 5,000 or it's just on top. We need a review of the times when you do the bring in the fill and the chemical analysis, which I don't think would be very much, but basically I'd want this person to at least do the review of the fill reporting that you've agreed to do. So I just would like to have that as part of that scope.
I will say through the chair, the reporting I think we'd be doing weekly will not only be photographs, but there will be a narrative as well. I think a narrative is important to have with it. As far as the fill goes, there are certain DEP standards that we have to meet for any fill we bring into the site. And those standards you'll have when we give you the reports on the fill. So I'm not quite sure what you're going to be reviewing. I mean, once you get the reports, I think the reports, as long as it says it meets those standards of DEP, I'm not quite sure what else you'll need to review.
I
Are
see your
there,
point. Yeah,
in the comprehensive permit, are there any conditions beyond the DEP requirements for fill or no?
it's our local reg.
No, I know
Our
that.
local reg was embodied in the comprehensive permit. It was we just changed the timing so that it was a little more flexible, if I
Okay.
recall correctly. But right, it's a matter of just making sure it meets our local, the specs that are in there, which are standardized tests.
Yeah, and we should also remember that now that you have a conservation agent, your agent is welcome to come by, as you know, anytime they want, you know, as far as just checking on the job. So I think, you know, that's sort of another checks and balances, if you will.
Right. So here's what I would say in response. If the local fill requirements are in the comprehensive permit in whatever form they come in terms of the flexibility of timing and that sort of thing, then how is that related to the $5,000 for a construction monitor? That would be taken care of and should be part of whatever is budgeted if that testing is part of the conditioning in that permit, right?
Yeah, I don't see why you'd be using any of the $5,000 for that.
Agreed. Because Michael, I mean, if it is in the permit, the comprehensive permit, then that's where whatever was agreed to there in terms of testing and the local fill regulations, that would be where it would come out of. It wouldn't have anything to do with this construction monitoring.
Oh, well, there's nothing there in the comprehensive permit. Okay. But okay, I mean, I see your point, Roy, about the fact that it should be a fairly straightforward process of reviewing the fill reports.
Yeah, the other thing I want to bring up is extremely important. I mean, I think we're probably more hypersensitive on this fill than you are. We're making this multi-million-dollar investment, something that needs to be financed, something that needs to meet certain standards, that we're not going to go out and contaminate our own property and destroy our own values.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate that. Right, to the extent that you're holding it within your portfolio, and right, true, under a 21E, you're still on the record. You're still on the hook for the chain of custody.
Even worse, if you're selling it, because the next buyer is going to want to test it as well.
If they find it. But okay,
Right.
I'll let go of that for now. We'll see how that goes then. Okay.
Okay. So does anybody else, commission-wise, or frankly anybody who's in attendance, just have any comments about that arrangement? I mean, Matt Byrne, it sounds to me like that's a reasonable compromise in terms of the cost, and it gets us the kind of oversight that we're really looking for, which is independent eyes, you know, working on behalf of the commission to, you know, and enough of a budget. I think the $5,000 should be enough of a budget to get them out there on a as-needed basis. Okay. Any other comments on that in terms of that? Is everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. All right. In that case, what else of substance do we need to review tonight?
I think, unless anyone had concerns, had the opportunity to look at the revised materials that came out yesterday, you know, those were out there, and we were waiting to see some of those revisions. I've taken a look at them. As I said before, I'm very comfortable with how they settle. But I think that would be something to talk through tonight if there's anything. And then, yeah, then I think, as far as I know, that would pretty much be it.
Okay. I've got to see a couple of hands. Carol was up first. Go ahead.
It would be great to get some feedback on this from you, Matt. So there's the document called Declaration of Restriction.
Mm-hmm.
And it has in clause 3, it says that the property owner reserves the right to maintain and develop or repair or use existing or proposed trails in that wetland area that's being reserved as a conservation area. I think I'm concerned mostly about where it says develop. trails. And I feel like, considering how much of this land is already being developed, that should not be included. I understand the idea of repairing or using existing trails. I'm not even sure that there's an existing trail though there. So I guess that whole clause I felt deserves some discussion.
Sure. I am, generally feel like land that's reserved for conservation purposes should be, made part of open space, as it were. So that doesn't strike me as particularly onerous, but by all means, as far as the commission, if the commission has other feelings about that, then I think that's certainly something to take issue with if you feel it's inappropriate.
I know, for instance, in the Whitney Farm development over on Whitney Street, there's a similar kind of situation with conservation, and you're probably not familiar with this one, Matt, but the rest of the commission is. And they did propose to have, kind of like a nature trail going through it, and we approved that. And so I think I would feel much better about this if there was actually a proposed, trail that we're aware of what it is and that it's, known beforehand. The other thing that I didn't like about the wording is that it says to maintain, develop, or repair, and without any oversight by the commission, evidently. So that's another reason that I felt that it would be better to say, okay, if there's a desire to have a trail, let's establish what it is now, and then we know what it is, and that's it.
To the chair, if I could comment.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. It is not our intention by that language to have any trails in wetlands, because obviously if it's in wetlands, it would have to go before the commission. You normally wouldn't do a trail in a wetland per se. I think the idea of the wording of that is, because a lot of that is upland land, and it's well out of the 100-foot buffer even. And normally when we do these, we leave language like that because who knows, 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now, someone may want to do a trail along the edge of that slope up on the hill, and we have no idea where it would be today. But if it's within 100 feet of the wetlands, we'd obviously have to come to the Concom.
Through the chair, may I add one thing to that?
Yes.
There is a current trail that cuts, if you look at that exhibit to the top portion of it, that kind of where that kind of existing gravel road goes through, and then it kind of connects up under the Eversource easement and then up into the orchard kind of area back there. So there is an existing trail that does kind of cut through the northern or top part, it's not north, but the top part of that exhibit.
One thing I would ask about that is that, my understanding was that the preservation of that land as kind of conservation in perpetuity was meant to be remediation for, the land in the 50 to 100, right? That's being part of the development. So I guess I would feel more comfortable that the conditions are set now. I understand that if there's a desire to have a trail and it connects with the rest of the natural area there, I'm actually okay with that. I would just like to see more clarity and around that.
Carol, sorry, if you don't mind, which document was you reading from? Because I just don't know that I put my eyes on that particular language.
No, I just saw it today too, and maybe we need more time with it, but it's called Declaration of Restriction.
It's the land restriction document.
Yeah.
Number 3A and B on the bottom of the first page of the land restriction. I could put it up if that would help. But
yeah, it would. I'm going to dig it out anyway. But if
okay, then I'll share the screen and I'll show it to you.
And it's section 3, Michael.
You see it here. This is at the bottom here. Reserved rights. And then here it's maintenance development of existing or proposed trails. As long as, I guess I'm trying to get at the issue of if it's going to be in a buffer zone or in our jurisdiction,
it's got to come
before us. if they want to do their own trails in this area. Not sure how much of the area, oops, I gotta go find it.
I don't believe we intend on adding any trails. I think we're just giving ourselves some leeway in case somewhere down the road one trail doesn't work and you need to reroute it.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I like the idea, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and there is some protective language around reasonably necessary to connect to an adjacent trail system. Let me, Matt Byrne, if you don't mind commenting, I don't know if you've seen a lot of these or not, but is this sort of fairly standard, or do we need to be a little bit more protective here? What do you think?
It's fairly standard. It is a little open there. You might want to include some kind of phraseology that prevents paved paths, or structural features, things of that nature. Fully understanding the intent of the reservation of that right, and sort of what's likely to come there. You might just maybe it's a phrase that that the commission has a role in reviewing any proposal for that parcel or that portion of the parcel,
like
just
that.
to kind of
get the,
I like that idea, yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea too, because then it's right, it is a little open-ended, and even though the intent of the current owners is what it is, and we take them at their word, of course, but 20, 30 years from now, you don't know what people are going to interpret that to mean, and it's a legal document, and therefore it can be interpreted in multiple ways. And so would the applicants be agreeable, and Carol, would this address your concern, where we would I think we can add the stuff about no pavement and no structures, but we could also just add that it would be in in coordination or agreement with commission representatives.
And that to me is probably the best way to go about it. Yes, that the commission need to review it.
Okay, applicants, are you okay with adding that language?
Yeah, it'd be nice to see a sentence in reference to what you're thinking.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. We can put something together for you.
Do we need to get town council to just look over this, or as part of this, or it's a little different than what we normally do, but
I will tell you, number 3 is right out of standard practice that goes along with these, as far as trails, maintenance, things like that. That's very boilerplate language.
I think it's not a bad idea to have town council review it, only for the reason you said, Michael, that we're just not familiar with this. At least I haven't seen something like this before.
I think conceptually it's fine.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I tend to.
My understanding originally for the purpose for asking for this is you wanted to make sure that no other buildings or structures would ever end up in this property. That was my understanding originally. And if that's really the case, this totally covers that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, I think you're right, Roy. It does. It just does have a vagueness to it in sort of the phraseology of so long as use is not significantly detrimental. By what measure and according to whom? So if
you can simply add, if you're concerned about it, there shall be no paved trails.
Where I start, how prescriptive you want to be in these kind of reservations gets down into a rabbit hole pretty fast, because technologies change. You don't know what comes 50 years from now, and what constitutes pavement. So if you just come up with just a process that makes the commission comfortable with that they'll have a say in whatever may come down the pike, that then you don't have to think through all the possible scenarios and all the possible things that you either do or don't want to allow.
Are there any existing trails there? I couldn't remember whether did we
I think
decide
that-
what?
I believe there's one partially on this.
That cuts up that kind of gravel roads. It's there and then
Okay,
connects
that's what
to
it said.
under the
Just
Eversource.
Do we just want to put in something, you're talking about wording, whether just after may develop, subject to Conservation Commission approval? Is that just adding that right here at the end of that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's the easiest way to do it.
Right, whether that's acceptable.
I get concerned because I'm not sure if we want to cut down dead trees, we got to go back to the Concom. If we wanted, again, you're
Yeah.
thinking at 50 years, I'm doing the same thing, thinking, what does that mean for anything you do on that property? If you rake the leaves, do you have to go back to Concom?
Well, how about that we want to just say any proposed new trails will be subject to Concom approval?
Or any proposed new trails, structures, or or similarly impactful modifications.
I think the way it's written now, we can't build any new buildings per se. So I think the first part of that would make sense. I think it seems to be a little redundant on the rest of it.
Yeah, I'd rather be redundant and cover what I want to cover than worry about getting it exactly tuned so that it's not.
So what is it you're proposing?
It already is there's no new building. It's already prohibited under 2.
Okay.
2 already prohibits the building. So it's just a matter of of doing anything new there. It's just a matter of any new trails.
It's 3B, Michael, by the way. It's this, development.
Well, but it's regarding to trails here. This is
Exactly.
3B is only related to trails, and we could just add something about that any
Why don't you just simply say
trails-
any new trails? What if you just said any new trails shall be subject to the approval of the Conservation Commission?
Perfect. That works for me.
Carol?
That's fine with me. I think right now we should be clear though, whether there actually is a trail there. I hear what you were saying about it going up the bank. I don't remember a trail through that field. I don't
Okay.
remember like a clear
But
trail.
This isn't the field. This is kind of on top of it's like up at the top of the hill.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, here's the good news. If we put that language in, if there is no trail now, then any trail we do will have to come back to the Concom.
Exactly.
Point.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, good. All right. So is everybody comfortable with adding that specific language about no new trails without commission approval? Yes?
Fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else that we want to, anything that Matt, you've noticed in this document or anything else?
No, I did note that both Michael and Cindy had their hands up before we got down this path, so I don't want to cut any of those folks off.
Absolutely.
And Matt, before we leave this though, Neil, one thing there's no new trails, but the other thing I'm wondering is like surfacing with asphalt or something. And I'm wondering if we could include some condition about that, because I think that also could be something that the commission would want to review.
If I could comment, how about in the sentence where we're saying no new trails shall be installed without the prior written consent of the Conservation Commission or bituminous paving?
Or could you say any resurfacing when changing?
Resurfacing could be gravel.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Any new surfacing. I was trying, any change in surfacing. So we don't have to get into.
That's good, Michael. I like that.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. So yes, before we go on, Michael, you had your hand. Well, actually, Cindy, I think had her.
I think might have been first, but.
Okay. Either way.
My question to Mr. McDowell is not about this declaration of restriction. So if we're still talking about this declaration of restriction, I will wait to ask my question.
Okay. Yeah. Let's finish this first, Michael.
I'm through with that. No, I had a minor other point. I'm through with the restriction issue.
Okay.
So does anyone else want to discuss the restriction?
I would just say, I like the suggestion of no new trails or changes in surfacing shall be installed without commission approval. That Roy suggested seems reasonable.
Great. Okay. All right.
And
So
the final comment I had that I'll share in a letter tomorrow is just, I don't know if it's a problem for Matt to do or not, but if he can provide a new fresh title to the sheet that is Exhibit A, just so there's never any confusion about which sheet we're actually talking about. I think that's
No
cleans
problem.
things up a little bit.
okay.
That was it for me.
All right. So nobody has any other comments about the restriction. So Cindy, Cindy, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. I just wanted to ask Mr. Roy McDowell. At our last meeting all together, he said that the next day he was going to talk to the owner of Weston Nurseries, and he was going to ask the owner of Weston Nurseries about the native plants grown without pesticides and herbicides and neonics and all of that. And I just wanted to hear back from him about that.
You have a very good memory.
Thank you.
So I, in fact, did get together with Wayne Mezet the next day. I actually brought the plan and showed it to him. I believe, Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, I think about over 90% of the planting is outside the 100-foot buffer.
Yes, and every one of the ones that they identified is outside of the 100-foot buffer.
Okay, but that being said, so I said to Wayne is, I know a lot about planting, but he's a real expert. He's been in the business for the last 50, 60 years. And he said to me, Roy, the reason why they came up with a lot of these hybrids is because now that we're doing less herbicides, less pesticides, less fertilizer, and frankly, less watering in a lot of plant material, they've come up with these hybrids because they're more tolerant of these things. And they are slightly different for sure. He says that most of them adapt very well to the environment, especially in a situation like this where you're really sensitive about pesticides, herbicides, and fertilization of different types of materials. In a lot of ways, he felt these would probably be more adaptable to that kind of environment.
And not to mention the hybrids were outside the 100-foot buffer.
Yeah, but just talking about the project whole, whether outside 100 or not, he did not see that as an issue.
He did not see what as an issue? Say that again. I just didn't.
Using this particular plant material.
I've never heard that argument that they're more tolerant. Usually the argument is that native species are so well adapted locally that they're more tolerant of local conditions and thrive more.
Well, it's not so much the local conditions, you're right about that, but we're creating conditions that aren't quite the same as, let's say, they were in the past, where you fertilize however you wanted, you use herbicides, pesticides, and you did more watering than one might do now with limitations on irrigation.
Was he talking about hybrids of native species? Is that what he was saying?
Yes. Yeah.
I see.
So Cindy, if I can ask you, what specifically, I remember the conversation. I don't remember, because it sounds like we're talking about plant material inside the jurisdictional areas and plant material outside of. And
I was hoping that the applicant would consider using native plants that were not hybrids, that were straight natives, because well, it's a broader reaching idea, but it ties into the whole Doug Tallamy sort of nature's last hope. You make connecting points for the pollinators, and it's a very broad reaching idea. It's a very holistic idea.
Well,
but
so the merits, I want to sort of separate, because I think we could have a long conversation about the merits of straight native versus hybrid, and I mean, the commission obviously has a preference for straight native because of the science that we look at, and it's understandable that other people can have other perspectives on it. But I really want to try to understand in this context whether we're asking them to change plant material outside of our jurisdiction, or are we talking about the plant material that's inside of our jurisdiction?
Well, I thought it was inside of our jurisdiction, but if they looked at it and it's outside of it, then I guess it's outside and it
No,
doesn't.
there's a lot, there's a lot inside our jurisdiction.
Okay.
Well, there is some inside for sure.
I don't believe any hybrids though.
So what is inside?
I'm gonna share something that I want to point this out. I'm gonna share the last. Do we see the corner of the plant with the plant schedule?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, here you have native buffer. If I could see my cursor moving around, where there's 13 trees and 55 shrubs. There's 3 trees and 10 shrubs over here. I'm not sure how that tallies with this whole thing here, because the shrubs total here is 9 and 28.
I believe that those are the ones that were added as part of this process.
These ones
Like
here.
the blueberry, the ones in the yellow.
Yeah, okay, so these are right. So this is not, this is separate from what's up with the plant schedule above. That these
Yes.
native buffer things are not included in the tallies in the,
I don't recall.
yeah, that's where I have another little question, but that was just one of the questions I have when I was raised, is that whether we got that clarity there.
It doesn't appear to be because they're not identified as the type on the plan. If you look at the planting plan, it identifies each tree. Maybe it does on the, see, if you look at one of the ones by the dog park, the 1TC, it
Right,
doesn't
exactly.
identify them by the native buffer.
Yeah, so I can't tell whether we're lacking a little bit of clarity
Good
here as to
question.
what's, I'm trying to scroll down here where, it's right, we're mainly concerned about stuff in jurisdiction, obviously, and just in particular, where you're doing this native buffer work here.
I think those are native, aren't they?
I believe Hawk had identified natives, so I don't see the list of the types on this plan. It might be somewhere else.
I haven't found it anywhere else, and the numbers
Okay.
didn't quite check with the numbers up here in terms of
Mhm.
here.
So-
That's why,
Well,
so I
let's
wasn't
put
quite
it-
sure what was referring to what.
The simple answer, if the simple answer we can say, because I think they already are, but if they're not, anything in that yellow area we can make sure is native. How is that?
Yeah.
Yellow and this area here, this other no maintenance.
Well, we
area.
can say no hybrids in the buffer zone too. I don't think
Yeah,
there's a
right.
problem with that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And let's just do that because I think that answers Cindy's concern, right?
I think Carol wanted to jump in with something. Carol?
Yeah, no, I think that would answer the concern. And I think you can usually tell, by the way, from the name, like it says, oh, now you're moving it, so it's hard for me to read.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, no, I was trying to see if there's any tree
So,
stuff over here.
hold on, guys. Look, I, while we could talk about this for a long time, the applicant has agreed that they will use straight native species in jurisdictional areas. Can we just be done with it? And we can make sure that it's documented what they're putting in, and we can sort of have as part of what we do as we go forward with the construction, make sure that that's the case. But I think if we put it in as a condition, they've already agreed, there's nothing more to talk about.
What, if we have the
You know, I was
condition?
just going to say something informational. I completely agree. We should ask for the straight natives. You can usually tell if it's a hybrid because it has a name, like red sunset. The native species usually doesn't.
And the question is, I think I don't see the draft order of conditions lately. So to see whether, I thought we were gonna have a condition that, and maybe why there's maybe not a match here between what's in native buffer and this thing here is that I couldn't tell. I thought we decided maybe last time that the final planting plan in those native buffer areas would just be subject to approval by the agent.
Yeah, I think
we
that's
had that
I
kind
think
of
we should
general
put that in as
condition
a
that we could
condition.
just, that way it could be specified later.
Yes.
Then the only other, so if we have that condition, then that'll resolve how we deal with those 2 native buffer zones. A very minor point that I brought up a while ago to just clean up this thing here is that this area here, we just need to specify the seed mix. which I can't tell if it's a 2 or a 3, to be honest with you. But it's something that just needs to be
We have that.
cleaned up. And I can't tell whether there's anything down here, what goes in these things here, down below.
Those are stormwater basins.
Okay. And all the other stormwater basins, you do specify a seed mix of some sort, so.
Yes, I think it's all the same.
Yeah, so just whatever it is, it's just a matter of adding that specifications to there.
And
That was
Todd,
yeah,
Hold on.
pardon me for the interruption, but Todd, if this is another sheet, that would be great to have just its own clean name.
Right.
Okay. I can stop sharing if people are through discussing this plan?
May I mention one other thing? The little roundabout you see out front on Coolidge Street, right where the MWRTA bus could pull off and on.
Yeah, right here. Yeah.
That under the comprehensive permit, that only gets built if MWRTA puts a route in that they're going to do the bus lane. Otherwise, it will remain as grass. Because there's no point in building it if they're not going to put the route in. So that's one of the things that's in the document.
Right, and I guess I should say that it's maybe not in our jurisdiction, so.
It's not, I guess.
That I'm not worried about. So therefore, it's
All
only
right.
really specifying here, which is part of it's in our jurisdiction.
Okay.
From the wetlands on this side and then the wetlands above. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Carol, did you have something you wanted to add?
I did wonder, because I'm always interested in that wildlife corridor. What is seed mix 3? It looks like that's what's going to be in that wildlife corridor between the buildings.
Don't have that in front of me.
I can bring it up here. Are we here? Did you still see the file here?
Yes.
Here you go. It's on the plan in this part here, all the seed mixes.
Okay, thank you. That looks great.
But it actually looks like the types of trees and shrubs in the native buffer are identified there as well.
Oh, down below. Oh, let's see, did I miss
yeah.
them?
Number 5.
Oh, yeah, right. Trees, one caliper, the mix. Whatever, okay.
Those are all straight species, so those look good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good,
Great.
wow.
What else?
We're all
What
refreshing
else?
ourselves as to what's here.
What else, commissioners?
through.
What else, Matt Byrne?
I
Mhm.
had some questions about, and I can't remember if we finished our discussion about this. I know we discussed it, but I did have some questions about the herbicide and pesticides because it appeared that in the landscape plan, Area A, which is most of the development, would be subject to herbicides and pesticides. And I know when we had the previous discussion, I didn't bring up this question, but there is a condition that says herbicides and pesticides will be used in parking areas and, to suppress weeds in walkways. And one thing I wanted to ask is, what would it be possible instead to substitute weed whacking, which is not a chemical weed treatment, but is quite effective at eradicating weeds in areas like that, or at least keep suppressing them?
Our normal goal is to do that as a matter of course. We prefer to do that, but sometimes you can do that, and because of the peskiness of a particular type of weed, you have to do something with it. It just keeps coming back. But it's not our first choice.
I wish there was some way to be clear about that, or to be clear that spot treatment of herbicides is only used as a last
But
resort.
there's no herbicides.
Don't we have language? It's the intent of the property owner to try and minimize the use of these things.
Yeah, I could share the screen again and show you that part of the. Where did I lose myself? Okay.
I think it also talks about using a low pressure sprayer, which I understand, but
This is the weed.
I hear you, Roy. I just think that sometimes people will look at something like that, and for convenience, somebody says, "Oh, this is the way we should do it," and wouldn't it seems like it would be better to really be specific about that.
Well, it says in here, they initially remove weeds and crack hand labor and mechanical devices.
But then it says she'll control weeds and crackgrass at each visit using regular applications of an herbicide, which seems to contradict that.
Well,
I'm very happy to take out the at each visit, because frankly, I don't want to use it at each visit.
Okay, so you can do an edit here, because here's where areas number 2 is that we don't have it, or in areas B, C, or D, as per Exhibit 1. So they're not using herbicides in any of those areas, but there is probably a little bit of area in the 150 to 100 that's maybe in buildings or sidewalks.
And I guess I'm concerned just about the overall migration out of the development, because I understand that isn't necessary. Some parts of it are not necessarily in jurisdiction, but I think that to the extent that the development can really minimize this, it's going to help the wetlands. So I appreciate, not saying at each visit, or maybe saying she'll preferentially remove weeds and crackgrass using hand labor and or mechanical devices. And then the contractor may control problem weeds using spot applications of an herbicide.
That's really kind of micromanaging to a degree that I think it's going to be hard to control. I think it might be better to say something. We can take out the each week, because each visit, because that's way too often. But I think we might just say something to the effect that the use of these things should be minimized, something to that effect.
I think
I hear
that's
what you're saying, but the problem with saying minimized is that what's minimized to you and what's minimized to me could be two totally different things.
And that's
So
the problem. And that's
clear.
the problem with things like this is, frankly, when we have a copy of this in the order of conditions, let's say, first thing we do is we give it to the property management. It's literally posted in the building. Then there's a copy given to the contractor, because it's important that they're in the line of responsibility for what they do. But I think at the same time, it's got to be on the part of ownership translated down to the people physically doing the work in the field, what the desired intent is of this document. Because if that doesn't happen, the people just, what happens in real life, people go willy-nilly, they do what they want.
Oh, I completely know what happens. Yes, that's exactly it. You've nailed it.
So let me ask this question. If we're going to take out on each visit, do we think that that the use of herbicides would be something that would happen, once a month, once every 6 months, seasonally? Like, do you have any, to the applicant, to Roy or anybody else, do you have any sense of when it might be? Just if we were to sort of prescribe it.
Well, when you say seasonally, it's definitely only used seasonally. You're not going to use it over 6 months out of the year. Right. So the question becomes, it should be, I would say the proper language should be used in a minimized fashion on a seasonal basis.
And maybe I'll ask.
And I know that's subjective to what that means to different people.
I understand.
But I think the important thing is, from the Concom's point of view, it shows what the intent is.
Right. And the other question I have is, if it's very infrequent, we could put something in there, but I also kind of maybe get Matt Burns' take here too. But I was just thinking, maybe you could put in something like, not requires the approval of the commission, but if it's going to happen once or twice a year, we would be notified before it happened, just so we could have some kind of opportunity for input or something like that.
It's probably going to be more than that, but I think it's a bureaucratic nightmare to have to call a Concom every time you want to do that.
Okay. And it's also a large site, so some days they might be working on one part of the site, other days they might be working on another part of the site.
And frankly, it's going to vary year to year, because if you get a lot of rain, a lot of humidity, a lot of heat, weeds are different than other years when you don't have that. So every year is going to be a little different. So
Right.
it's hard to nail it down as tightly as you want to.
No, understood. I think I'm trying to find something more stringent than should be minimized because of the possibility of interpretation, although I understand what you're saying about expressing intent, and that's important. Matt Byrne, do you have any experience with this or any suggestions?
Yeah, I think that I tend to want to rely on the experts, and the guys doing that are the experts. And I think that if this document can, I do like verbiage that's sort of along the lines of minimize to the greatest extent possible, and then sort of that trickle down ethos of we want to use as little as possible, is backs that up.
And Matt, another thing to keep in mind here, and people take this very seriously, this has to be done with the supervision of a certified herbicide applicator, meaning a licensed person. It's like in the environmental world, when you hire an LSP, the LSP is not going to do anything that puts his license at risk. And the same thing goes here. When you have because we use certified herbicide applicators all the time, and they post notices, they do it the right way because it's their license on the line. So
Right.
I think if you have the language to minimize it, and what Matt just said, I think that more than covers you.
Well, the only thing I would say is that we've had this is a kind of an ongoing commission discussion about what sort of the state says are permissible applications of certain toxins, and whether the science backs that up or not, because things can be government approved and they still don't mean that they're safe. And there's sort of the gap between those two things that we always worry about, and it's something that's just, like I said, an ongoing conversation the commission has. I guess what I'm wondering is, when we did this, we had a project in a golf course where they were going to periodically apply pesticides of some kind or other. I mean, is there a way that we can sort of limit them to? I don't remember what we did with that project. I don't know if any commission remembers this. This is Sassamon Trace. But I don't know if there'd be a way that we could reach a compromise on just kind of limiting the types of herbicides we're talking about, or something like that.
Well, a golf course would use a lot more herbicides than anything like this.
Right. No,
Yeah,
I'm just talking
I mean,
about the families of herbicides. And I don't know if any commissioner remembers that, or if Matt, if you've seen any sort of restriction put in place on what kinds can be used.
I have not.
I will tell you that changes all the time because new products are coming out. So
Understood.
my concern is if you limit it to X and then all of a sudden Y becomes available, and
Right.
Y could be actually less harmful, or we're
Right.
stuck with something else. So I think that could be a little tricky.
Right, and from what I remember, we used to that they would come back on a yearly basis, and they would sort of, if there was new herbicides, they would come and they would tell us what they were, and we would approve their use or not. And then I think what I'm thinking more about in terms of particular ones was, it was on the side of fertilizer, asking for organic, slow release kind of stuff. I don't know if that's anywhere in here as well, like fertilizer. Is it what we've said there? I just don't remember because I have not looked at this.
I'm looking at other language here where it talks about damage shall be the responsibility of the contractor. So you've got some language in here
Mhm.
that's going to make a contractor feel a little more responsible because he's a risk.
Right. Carol, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just to respond to your question about Sassamon Trace, I think probably Michael and might have been on the commission at the same time. I agree that they came up with an integrated pest management plan, and no doubt, they're managing an enormous amount of turf. They did, though, specify the chemicals that they were using. So I could imagine that one possibility might be that on an annual basis, it would be reported to us what chemicals would be used. I think if you're doing
That's reasonable.
weed control, you pretty much probably know beforehand if it's going to be Roundup, glyphosate, or if it's going to be something else.
Yeah, we could do something. I like that idea, because I think more than anything, Roy, we're really looking for an opportunity to kind of just give some feedback if it departs from just generally what we have taken to be safe or good for the interests of the Wetland Protection Act. So if you think it's reasonable for just on an annual basis to submit what chemicals you might be using over the course of a year, we'd be fine with that, I think. I mean, that's my opinion.
Let me ask you this. What if we agreed to submit to you what chemicals we're going to be using, and we don't have to resubmit unless we change chemicals?
That's fine.
I'm just worried about a
That's
bureaucracy.
fine.
Someone
That's fine.
forgets. Okay.
It achieves the same end. I think that's fine. Unless Carol, I mean, you're or Cindy, if you want to disagree.
The one thing I would comment is I think this is a good approach because, among other things, we, for instance, have had consultation from New England, the Native Plant Trust, regarding invasive removal. And we know that there are specific chemicals that they think are safer around wetlands. So presumably, if you can report this as part of your landscape plan, what chemicals you plan to use, we would be able to get that kind of guidance of what's safe and what's not safe around wetlands.
Okay.
And get back to you.
Yeah, we're happy to do that as long as we can agree that we'll give it to you so you'll be comfortable with it. As long as we don't change it, we don't have to report it back.
I think that's fine because if you don't change it, then what's the report?
Exactly.
Yep. Michael, you had your hand up?
Yeah, that sounds fine. I like that's right. That's a little more similar to what we did before. The only other thing I was going to bring up in terms of the wording here on that we control .1, I guess we'll just add that kind of word about providing it. The list is that whether to say not only to minimize, but whether also to give a priority for, it says, I guess the contractor shall initially remove, or just, you could just say shall preferentially remove, but also add maybe a line about, besides minimizing, also try to select, and I always have trouble with this term, some sort of natural or organic. I'm not sure what is a meaningful term for a set of pests, for a set of herbicides, or that are considered okay. I don't know, Matt Byrne, whether it's such a complicated, I mean, some stuff that's natural isn't good either.
Michael, the best way to handle that is knowing your concerns. We would go to our certified person and say, look, these are the concerns of the community. We're surrounded by wetlands. We want to have something that's effective for what we need to do, but not overly so, and one that's more friendly to the environment. What do you recommend? He'll give us a list of those and we'll submit them to the Concom once we decide what we're going to do.
And one other thing
here, I can't tell you that.
Right.
I was just putting the words.
Hold on. Let me see if I can bring these two ends together, because I think ultimately what you really want, Michael, is kind of what Carol was talking about, which is, minimize to the greatest extent possible, and choosing, low herbicides that are minimally or as maximally. I'm screwing up the language, but basically that's wetland friendly. That's what Carol was talking about. So can we just put some? All it's going to be is just give preference to minimizing impacts to herbicides that minimize impacts to wetlands and wetland value functions and values.
I think that's fine as long as you don't use the word friendly, because frankly, none of them are friendly.
I won't use friendly. Yes. That's just that's my shorthand trying to get the words out of my mouth tonight. But I know what you mean.
Okay. I think I'd be happy with that kind of wording in the list, and we can discuss the list when it comes, and it doesn't have to change. But I'd be fine with all that.
Okay.
Are we taking notes on this, or is someone on the Concom taking notes on this?
I'm taking notes.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Matt Byrne, are you taking notes?
Yeah.
I bet you
I've taken some notes, but some of the language with not the word friendly, but something like that. It'd be nice to.
I say friendly once, and
a draft.
I can't live it down.
A draft sentence for that one would be nice to receive.
Okay. I think that's an oxymoron.
Right. It's less unfriendly.
Yes.
So no, that's fine. Carol, you had your hand up, so I just want to acknowledge if you had a question or concern.
Yeah, I was just going to respond to the discussion to say, unfortunately, when it comes to control like this, there does not seem to be any natural controls that are very effective. So I have to agree with the discussion that says lowest impact to the wetlands.
Okay, great. What else? Michael, do you have your hand up for something else, or it's
Oh,
just
my hand's still up? I can't see on my screen. Nope, I'm lowering my hand. I'm done.
there we go. All right, Matt Burns, should we return to you? What else is there?
A very minor conflict in two clauses in the landscape operation and management plan. At the beginning on page 2, mowing and trimming, it says in number 5, wait a minute, hang on a second.
You have it on the screen if you can see here.
Yeah, it's number 3 is clippings in area B will not be removed except within stormwater basins, and that's what we had talked about before. At the end of the document, in resource area management, number 12, it says shall be reviewed and maintained by annual mowing and cleanup. And so those two statements are just in conflict, and number 12 should indicate that the cleanup won't occur. So, exactly, you know what I'm saying?
So just annual mowing, period?
Yeah.
That's fine.
And that would be consistent with the statement number 3 at the beginning.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
It sounds like a friendly amendment.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look, I'm
managed
gonna
to wangle that one in there.
I think that the operation and management plan should have a date and a sort of last revised date so that we can refer to that in the in everything. So everybody is on the same page.
You want to put today's date on it?
After you make your changes to it.
Yeah.
Or whenever you make the changes.
Okay.
Or I guess you got to get wording from us too. All right.
Yeah, I'll wait to get them for you and then we'll do it all at once.
Yeah. And that was all I had.
Okay. Any other commissioners want to comment? Okay. Anybody else? Anybody just in, there's a couple people here that are not, but anyway. Okay, so let's see. Are we in a position to actually close this hearing? Because I'm just thinking about sequencing. So we've got some edits we've talked about, and we have some edits we've talked about. And so is there any reason not to close the hearing tonight? Do we need one more session to kind of take a look at the final documents or anything like that? Where I'm taking people's temperature. Matt Byrne, what do you think?
In general, I think it's safest where we still have some wordsmithing and some things to work out, because closing the hearing starts the clock ticking.
True. Yes, you're right.
We might say continue at one time with the expectation that everything will be revised, as agreed, and that the special conditions, the order of conditions will be drafted and prepared in time for the next hearing.
Okay.
And at which you'd close and vote to agree, and then you can circulate it for signatures.
You're right. The clock starting is what we don't want, because we do have a little bit of work left to do. Yes.
And it's also right, just making sure that nothing comes up that we want to re-entertain. But I think we could basically at the next thing, just as Matt said, we can basically have all the stuff ready so that we could essentially close the hearing and vote on the project.
Right. And what I want to avoid is, any last minute sort of, hey, we never thought about X. So I just want people to really review these materials when we get the revisions in, make sure they're in there. Any questions, really, if there's anything novel of substance, it's speak now or forever hold your peace. And it sounds like we've been pretty exhaustive here, but just wanted to kind of point that out.
Neil, how do we intend to handle the stormwater? Because you said that that is kind of been set aside. Did I misunderstand that?
A little bit. So basically, the work that we wanted to do around that never got done. The conditions that came through that we contracted to have done were not really on point with what we were asking for. And we attempted to resolve the sort of the disconnect there, but it just didn't work out. And we just ultimately decided that we were just out of time, and we had waited long enough and attempted to resolve a good faith effort, and it's not, there's no harm in it. It's just we couldn't make ends meet as far as that piece went. So in terms of any kind of conditioning around in the buffer zone around the stormwater system, we just decided that we weren't gonna have them. And that the stormwater standards and the stormwater handbook and all the stuff that had gone through the comprehensive permit would be sufficiently protective. That was kind of just kind of our sense of it. So that's where it ended up.
Thank you for that explanation.
Not a problem. Anything else from any commission members before I continue this hearing? Or anybody else for that matter? So applicants, you're okay with coming back at our next meeting so we can finalize this and close the hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it should be pretty minor.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm sort of saying, speak now if it's anything else, and otherwise it should be just what we've already discussed, and we should be ready to go. Okay. One other thing, just as a point of procedure, and just finances, you have given us $1,500 toward the stormwater conditions that we are not going to spend. And I don't know if Matt Byrne, I mean, we can take this offline too, but I don't know where you are in terms of your use of the funds that we've allocated in addition to the original. And so maybe we can take that up offline, but just to kind of put that on your radar if it's going to make life easier to move money around, if there's a need for it, that's all.
I'll take a look at where we're at. I know we've continued to have more meetings than expected,
Exactly.
and so forth. So
Okay.
I'll just see where we stand and
Fantastic.
talk to you about that.
All right. And to the applicant, we'll certainly check in with you about that once we get that information. So
Thank you.
okay. All right. I move that we continue this hearing to the 16th of December at Elizabeth?
8 p.m.
8 p.m. An early time slot. Look at you guys.
Yes. Awesome.
That is what you call a friendly time slot. Do
Second.
I have a second?
Maybe we can wrap it up by 8:15.
There you go.
Second, yes.
Thank
It
you,
takes us
Courtney.
more than that just to read the findings.
That's right. Okay, I got a second from Courtney. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, Neil, aye. Michael,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Jessica,
Aye.
Courtney.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. Okay, we will see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and germs. Matt Byrne, thank you once again. Your help has been, I couldn't really begin to measure how valuable it has been, because I feel
I'm
like you've
glad
been
to hear that.
a stalwart guide and this voice of reason on, working on behalf of the interests that we are, regulatorily obligated to protect. And so I just want to thank you for all the input and all the help you've given us. So
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate the opportunity to help you with this. This has been I think a good project.
agreed. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
All right,
thanks.
well, I think we are,
night.
okay, good night, Matt, thank you. I think we are done for tonight, correct?
Seems like we're ready for that.
No,
Mike?
I thought Anna wanted to talk about an
Don't
agent.
yes.
you want to talk about wetland
She
boundaries?
had
there?
she had the
I'm
markers.
not-
Which
Okay.
is
50 or
actually
100.
on our agenda. It says, it's in bold, agent's report.
It's
Okay.
whether we want to do 50 or 100, maybe.
Do you want to do 50 or 100 and take a look at the sign and make sure it doesn't say Conversation Commission?
I read it, I checked it, I spelled checked it.
There's a little red border around it. I will ask him about that. We don't want a red border around it. But I think the fonts are more along the lines of what you were thinking, Michael.
There we go.
Well, thank you for showing that.
There we go. Let's see. Oh, it's just incredible. Yep, we've got there.
You know what, though? I feel like Sherborn Conservation Commission is too small. It's like, oh, we're the tiny little Sherborn Conservation
I
Commission.
know, I like
No, I
that.
think it's
I like
fine.
that it's
I
small.
think it's
It's
fine.
okay. It's fine.
I want it small.
You want it small.
Just so
Yeah.
they don't. So when they go to do a drive-by, they don't know where to go.
In the end, the biggest thing is the wetland protection area. Who cares
Right.
about us?
Yeah, I think that's the most
Represent
important
wetland.
piece. Yeah.
All
Right.
right. All right. Others are comfortable.
So the
I mean-
questions in front of you are, well, actually, so the VHB tape, they have used it before on concrete. It is permanent. Michael, you had suggested that they send us a sample. I'm not sure exactly what that would accomplish.
Okay.
I'm inclined to recommend that we go with 50 or 100, and that be our sample, that we try, that we
Oh, yeah.
try
Do we
them
want
out.
the tape? Oh, yeah, no, all right. Oh, yeah, no, I wasn't saying, well, forget the sale. Can it come with or without the tape? Or, but I guess the
Yes,
tape.
the
would help.
tape is priced separately, but that is what they recommend as the adhesive, and it's the strongest adhesive they have.
Wow, so we better not stick it on you. You'll never get it off you.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You'll be walking around with a label on your hand.
I think the last
Right
time
there.
Michael recommended doing 50, just because in case I think this was your reasoning, Michael, because if we run into an issue or we find something is not quite right with it, we can adjust for the next order.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difference of it's a little over $7 each for that, and then the other one's $5.90, closer to $6.
Right.
Obviously, I mean, I
But
don't know
I
how
think you're
quickly
right.
50 would go. I mean, that's a lot of that's probably 10. Well, we're using a lot of them,
Well, usually we do like 3 or 4. So
right?
You
So
know.
that's about 10 projects.
yeah.
Well, 15 projects.
So maybe we'll get some feedback on those and then we'll know better. And if we get great feedback on those first 50, then we order 100.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just, I thought your
I'm
idea
fine.
was a
I'm
good
fine
one.
with the 50. It's not a lot of money difference. It's only about 70, whatever, maybe about $60, $70 difference.
Well,
And,
I'm just going based on your idea of,
yeah, right. I'm ready to go with the 50. And what did you say about the red? The red is there, but we don't want the red.
Yeah, I'll check with him. I think that's just an artifact of the proof. I don't think that
Right,
that's
that's what I was
actually.
thinking so too. I'd be fine with just going with 50 and see how this whole process goes. Even I'm worried about the administrative cost of trying to get people to pay for them versus handing them out. Or whether if it gets too awkward, it takes too much time just to sell them, whether this is the kind of thing that could get funded by our fund, by the fees fund, whether we just fund it out of there. So that we don't have to go through the hassle of people writing an extra check or just explaining it to everybody. I don't know, maybe it's not that hard. You can experiment and see how bad it is to collect the money versus whether we just pay for it out of the.
Yeah, that is a good point. Though that I think we don't need to decide tonight,
Okay,
or do we?
We
no,
don't.
Okay. So thanks for pulling that up. I will go ahead and order 50. And I'll read Elizabeth's message that signature sheets are in the blue bin.
okay,
Okay.
Did we go through the administrative approvals and I missed it?
yes.
Yes.
Yep, you blinked early
I
too.
blinked. Oh, sorry about the blinking. I'm glad we didn't have to do administrative approvals again.
Okay, Neil, do your thing, unless Anna's not got something.
Well, I sent this out by email, but I want to
Yes.
stop.
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I sent this out by email, but I want to just say it that I hope that you all will feel very welcome and encouraged to, come by town hall sometime and even give me a heads up that you're going to come, so I make sure that I'm not in the field, and say hello to me in 3D. I
Whoa.
would love that. Because you all live in Sherborn, I think,
It's true.
and I work there now, so I would really love that. Over the next couple of months, just you're very welcome, and I would really like that.
Anna, do we actually have to make an appointment? Because I thought town hall was maybe closed right now, or have they?
It is not
No.
closed.
Okay, good, okay.
Is there any talk of moving you guys in the basement?
Yes, but no
What's the schedule?
timeline,
Oh,
not
okay.
anytime soon.
Okay, good. Well, hopefully we'll see you sometime in real. I'm really
Yes.
only two-dimensional.
Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, I know. It's like you're gonna have to see what people really look like.
I will bring my
for my
3-year-old.
for my work,
Oh, there you go.
For my work, I showed up at a place I had been, the president for a while, and I walked in, and the first thing the guy who ran the subsidiary said to me is, "You're shorter than I thought you were."
There you go.
That is the kind of thing you just shouldn't say. But
Yes, I'm not quite sure what to tell you. What's supposed to take that?
I must sit tall, on the Zoom.
Right. But Jessica, when you go in, you have to bring the dog.
Oh, okay. The 2 dogs and the 3-year-old. You got it.
Oh, two
That's right.
dogs. Oh.
All right.
I'll come back to pick them up later. Don't worry.
Okay.
After
I'm gonna move. I am gonna move that we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor, Neil, I, Michael,
All right.
Cindy,
Aye.
Carol,
I.
Courtney,
Aye.
Jessica.
Aye.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Good night, Elizabeth. Good night, Ann. Thank you so much.
Good night, Anna.
Bye.
Bye.